Good morning. Well, don't put your faith in politicians. Julian Assange is certainly finding that out, and the world's media is looking at him, and I must confess as I find it a puzzle myself. Also, Anna Campbell, lest we forget. It's just about a year ago now that Anna Campbell went off to Syria to fight for the Kurds, with the Kurds, against what she deemed to be a great injustice and threat from ISIS, and she was killed. And her father has been lobbying to get her body back so that they can have a proper burial and closure on their daughter. And of course nothing much has happened there either. Whether it's Ecuador, whether it's Britain, whether it's the United States, or wherever, be careful about putting your trust in politicians. Good morning. Those of you who have followed me at all on Mirador Television will know that I have a very, very peculiar view of the political system from top to bottom. Yes, I'm a Democrat. I'm a real Democrat. I've worked hard to establish independent media in many parts of the world where democracy is a mockery. Not least of which is in Romania, where there are reports over this last week that journalists against the regime, an EU country, I may say, and I was there on the eve of them being given membership in the EU, are now accused of again throwing journalists into jail if they disagree with what the quote government say. However, that's for another day, because there are two stories that really, one relates directly to Lewis and this area, and the other is just, to me, a very peculiar situation. It's not easy being a journalist. We are expected to show impartiality, which I hope we try to do. But the English media, anyway, let's say the British media, has never, ever not had a form of bias in its entire history. Yes, we try to be impartial. Yes, we try to interpret the facts, but interpret is the key word. And it is not easy to always get to the bottom of things when you have to interpret differing views and differing reports, differing information. You have to come to a conclusion. That just because I say that we haven't always been impartial, or it doesn't mean to say that we don't try, and it doesn't mean to say that British media isn't unfair. On the contrary, I think probably still, even though the halcyon days have gone from the good old days of the Reuters spy journalists, and it has been certainly watered down by this very medium through which I'm speaking at the moment, the internet. But nonetheless, I think we do an honest try at trying to look beyond the headlines. And the one thing that governments, it has always been a great amazement to me. I have no idea why people stand for election. They say quite genuinely, or I don't know whether genuinely, they look as if they're genuine, that they are going to serve the people, that they're going to work on behalf of the people. And the moment they actually get into power, they don't want to tell us anything. I don't care whether you're talking about Westminster, whether you're talking about the United Nations, whether you're talking about the Kremlin, or whether you're talking about Lewis District Council. Somehow, no, we don't dare let them know what's going on. And it's very peculiar. And that's why a digging and thrusting journalistic sector is extremely important. Now, a very respected journalist, a lady called Rosie Hayes, no relation to me whatsoever, although we've worked together. Strangely enough, circumstances brought us together to work together, and I have a lot of time and a lot of respect for Rosie. And she put up on the YouTube, so that it came into my area of YouTube, a report on Julian Assange and some of the people that are very, very uneasy about what's happening and what has happened to him over the last little while. Now, I hadn't given much thought to this, but when I got something from Rosie, I always pay attention to it. And she is a very fine journalist, and if in fact she took the time to put a collage together on her news site, which is YNUK, dip into it sometime. There's some good stuff there. She treats the news with a good sense of humour, but also digs deep to see what she can bring in visual terms to the news agenda. So I immediately sat up a little bit, because somebody over the weekend said to me, you know, Assange is really innocent. I can't believe what's happening to him. And I almost went, yeah, because what I've been doing is not paying too much attention. I've been paying lip service to, yes, this is happening to Assange, and that's happening to Assange, and isn't this terrible, and so on and so forth. And I really haven't paid much attention. But I now have started to read up a little bit, partly because of Rosie and partly because some of the comments made to me. And I don't know whether Assange is innocent or not. That's the point. I have no idea. Now, he perhaps was his own worst enemy by diving into the Ecuadorian embassy and staying there for 7 years, and hasn't really, apart from protesting his innocence, done much to defend himself in the courts. But then again, I have reason myself to doubt the sort of thing that happens in courts, whether they're here or elsewhere. And I know an awful lot of judges and barristers and so on, and I'm able to talk to them. And even they sometimes feel uneasy about the way that they have to deal. As one very senior judge said to me, you know, Keith, what we are judges. He said, people don't quite understand that. We have to take the evidence and we have to look at it and we have to try and be as impartial as we can. And then with a glint in his eye, he said, exactly what you tried to do. No, it isn't easy, whether you're a judge or whether you're a journalist. It's the two J's. It's not easy. But I am beginning to feel a little uneasy about Assange. The Americans are paranoid about people tapping into their computers. Did he or didn't he? And we've had other cases where Brits have been threatened with extradition for tapping into the American system. The big problem, of course, is that by the very nature of the vastness of American government, they are probably more secretive than anybody else. So we see them as this huge, huge empire protecting itself. And if they pick on somebody like Assange, then an awful lot of us that say, you know, it's the Americans being heavy-handed again. On the other hand, the Ecuadorians now are saying that he was spying within the embassy. Well, if I may say so, daft bloody Ecuadorians. I mean, Ecuador shouldn't have done it in the first place if they weren't prepared to stick by it. So, to some extent, I can't accept really much of what they've said. And Assange's lawyer has been quite furious about the charges and has said, you know, these are all trumped up just to get him out. Well, why did they take him in the first place? So I'm beginning to think that there is much more of this Assange story than meets the eye, and I'm going to start to follow it from now on. I don't know, guilty or innocent. The only thing I do know is that in this country, and I think that this is the right way round, because even the Napoleonic law, which sometimes applies in French jurisprudence, that is, you're guilty until you prove yourself innocent. We, on the other hand, say you're innocent until you're proven guilty. Now, Assange has made it a bit difficult to face trial to determine his guilt or innocence, but nonetheless, I think that like everybody else, he should be given the benefit of the doubt. Okay, that's one rant this morning. put not your trust in governments. And I'm not going to talk about Brexit this morning because you can follow that in the major media. There's going to be enough said about it today because, as one might expect, the whole thing is shooting up into the air like a rocket again. Who knows what's going to happen? But I'd like to bring it back to the government again, back locally, because we've lost sight of what happened to Anna, and bring Anna home. Now, Mirador has run a campaign. As a matter of fact, it's one of the campaigns that got a lot of viewers, and that is bring back Anna Campbell, who is a local girl, 26 years old, lives in Lewis, a very respected father who is a Scottish piper. He's God bless him, and turns out to all sorts of things. And he wanted to bring his daughter back after she went off to Syria to fight in that awful war that's going on out there. And she was blown to smithereens. Well, we don't know whether she was blown to smithereens or not, but what we do know is that she died in a rocket attack, and very badly. The body would be very badly damaged, but nonetheless, that's beside the point. Is he wants to have his daughter back, and the Turks have not helped because they've just dug their heels in on any dealings. But our Foreign Office have not helped either. There's one, I think it was a quote from Anna's father, Dirk, saying that they've been mealy-mouthed about it. In other words, we're doing all we can to bring your daughter back, but we can't do much with this, we can't do much with that. Well, that sounds just like the civil service. It doesn't matter what level. It doesn't matter whether you're talking about Lewis, or whether you're talking about Westminster, or whether you're talking about the Pentagon, or wherever you're talking about. The civil service can be, quote, mealy-mouthed. That's the way they cover up inactivity, is because, oh, well, the negotiations and so on and so forth. But it is high time that the British government really listen to Dirk, because I think that they're going to get their fingers badly burned if they don't. I've described it as the Jenkins Ear War, which in the 1700s, Jenkins was a British captain who had his ear cut off in I think it was a fight with the Spanish in the West Indies, and the British government actually, although this is the a fanciful story that the Britain actually went to war over Jenkins' ear. Well, it was some years after his ear was cut off, and he was used as an excuse just to go to war with the Spanish. But nonetheless, it is held up as a time when the British government looked at the individual rather than at the state. And this is a time that we expect Jenkins' ear to kick in. We need the state to look after the individual. We need the state to look after the Campbells. We need the state to bring Anna back. And enough mealy-mouthed. Time for direct action. And if we can't do it, then we are the nation that is being dangled in front of the world as completely incapable of making any decisions, completely incapable of looking after its citizens, completely incapable of taking direct action. Well, you guys are the guys that say, that there are things we can't tell you. Well, you can't tell us. Tough. Because then we make up our own minds about what we can see. And that really is what public opinion is about, what journalism is about, and yes, what High Court judges are about. We can only judge on what we know. And if you don't tell us, then it's your fault if you get hung out to dry. And on Anna, I think you're going to be hung out to dry just at the time when you could do with a bit of support. What a wonderful rant I've had this morning. I feel much better. It's really cleansing for me. I go out to meet the world. It is Monday. I'm Keith Hayes. This is Mirador Television. This is in Lewis on the, no, not on the south coast of England. It's 5 miles inland. But in East Sussex, with West Sussex, one of the biggest counties in the whole of the United Kingdom, and we bring you a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and we hope that we entertain you while looking at serious issues. Don't forget, laugh at your illness. Parkinson's? That's it. I've done away with you. All right, talk to you tomorrow. Ta-ra.